Okay, everybody, welcome to the latest episode of All2ReelToo. My name is Michael E. Cullen II, and with me, as always, is...
It's Matthew Haas.
Matthew Haas?
No funny nickname this time.
Oh, okay. I was just making sure you weren't questioning your name, because you said it kind of questioning, like Matthew Haas?
Oh, I did it. I kind of have like a sort of inquisitive... Yeah. I'm always struggling with my identity, so.
So, today on the show we have an all-two interview with film director Scott Barber. And we talk about his documentary, which was awesome, that I saw, called The Orange Years, which was not about the 4 years Trump was in office.
No.
Just want to emphasize that. The Orange Years was about it's called The Orange Years, the Nickelodeon Story. Story? I don't know what a story is. Do you know what a story is? Anyways, so
no.
The Orange Years, the Nickelodeon Story, which Scott co-directed with Adam Sweeney, a childhood friend of his. It was a great interview with him, talking about all the things. The documentary, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. You can buy it or rent it on Amazon Prime and iTunes and all those good places. It's great watch, especially if you grew up on Nickelodeon like I did, and I'm sure Matt did. Yeah, if you liked shows like You Can't Do That on Television, Are You Afraid of the Dark, Doug, Ren and Stimpy, Rugrats, Clarissa Explains It All.
Yep.
All of those awesome shows, and and all that. Kenan and Kel. It covers all the years from basically the inception of Nickelodeon up to the SNICK years, the Saturday Night Nick years. It's really fun to watch, and he was able to get interviews with a lot of cool people like Kenan Thompson, especially Kenan Thompson is awesome. But and people from all the shows such as You Can't Do That on Television, all that. He even got Melissa Joan Hart's in there, talking about that. He's got Danny Cooksey from Salute Your Shorts, which was my favorite show on Nickelodeon. He's got Michael Bauer from that as well. Other great actors. I'm blanking on a lot of them, but there's so many great interviews with all these people, and basically he was able to get one person to say yes, and then on and on and on. He got Mark Summers from Double Dare.
Oh yeah, I remember that show. Yeah,
he's got lots of cool things. Talks about all the great fun times about the first channel for kids that basically raised a lot of us when we were growing up in the 80s and the 90s. If you like that stuff, make sure you listen to this interview. It's really cool to find out how he was able to do this. And so right now, here is my interview with Scott Barber from The Orange Years. First off, how are you doing with all the craziness in the world with COVID and all the other stuff going on?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate. The way timing worked up, all of the projects that I'm working on are in the post-production phase. And then, of course, I also have The Orange Years that's now out there and we're just promoting it. So luckily, I all the stuff that I had filmed pre-COVID, so that just worked out really well. We were very fortunate. So I'm doing as good as it can be done during this crazy pandemic.
That's awesome. How did you get involved in filmmaking?
You know, it's kind of a weird story. I kind of slowly fell into it. It's hard for me to say when I got into it exactly. I went to school for acting, actually, up in Dallas, Fort Worth. And that's what I got my degree in. And so a lot of us actors kind of were saying, you know, we weren't getting the parts that we wanted. So we're like, let's just make our own little films, our own short films, stuff like that. So we could cast ourselves however we wanted to cast ourselves. So we'd all work on each other's projects. And that's kind of where I cut my teeth. And then, you know, doing it artistically. And then once I got married and had kids, I kind of took it a little more seriously. I said, okay, now I got to provide for some other people. So me and my wife, we decided to open our own production company. And we made just anything and everything that we could make to make money, filmmaking. And then the Orange Years is kind of the completion of that circle. That's my first actual full feature-length film that I've ever made.
Cool. What was your guys' inspiration for the Orange Years? Like, what gave you guys the idea to make the documentary?
Yeah, well, so Adam Sweeney, who is my co-director on the Orange Years, he and I are actually childhood friends. We met in the late 80s at Oak Ridge Elementary School in Conroe, Texas. And we were really good friends back then. So we watched all of these shows together. And there's a line in our trailer where Geraldine Laybourne, who was the president of Nickelodeon, she says, you know, in the late 80s, divorce rates were going up. Both parents having to go to work was going up. And cable was moving into people's lives. And she wanted to give people a childhood that they could remember. And Adam and I were both that perfect demographic. We were both children of divorce. Both of our moms and dads worked. So we were both latchkey kids. So Nickelodeon, needless to say, meant a lot to both of us, both separately and together, because there were many sleepovers where I'd be at his house or he'd be at my house and we'd watch Are You Afraid of the Dark? You know, Adam and I are both huge horror nuts. And that's probably where it started. And when Adam's family moved away, and Nickelodeon kind of kept our friendship together because we'd call each other. This is pre social media. So even though he only moved, 30 miles away, it was like, he might as well have been on Mars. But, we'd call each other and watch SNICK together, or call each other afterwards and be like, dude, what did you think of that? That was crazy. So it was it was a personal story for both of us, for sure. It was something that it was personal and passionate for both of us. And Adam and I, like I said, we had been friends since childhood, and Adam went to school as well for film. And in our adult lives, we had written some scripts together. And we kind of had both been frustrated, both separately and together, with how that had gone, trying to make stuff, but you're relying on a bigger studio. You're relying on somebody else to pick up your project. And we just said, God, let's just make a movie ourselves. Let's just make it. Let's come up with the idea. Let's write it. Let's direct it. And let's get it out there all ourselves. And we figured a documentary was probably the most attainable way we could do that. So we thought, let's do a documentary. What do we do a documentary about? And we thought different things, and those memories of Nickelodeon from our childhood came back to us, and we said, let's do it, right? But surely someone's done it already, and we couldn't believe nobody had done a documentary about Nickelodeon. And then, so we started doing some research, and once we found out about Geraldine Laybourne and her team, we're like, okay, that's the story. That's what's going to make this cool. So and this was in 2016. That's whenever the whole thing kind of came about.
That's cool. I grew up on Nickelodeon too. I was born in the late 70s, so I kind of, I was there from the pinwheel days until probably around the SNICK years, as I probably fell off about then too. So I'm just curious, what was your favorite Nick show as a kid?
It's real hard to say. It would have been hard to say before this, but after getting to know all these people, and I got to see it more from their point of view, the people that created these shows, I got an all new passion for these shows, hearing from these people that made them. But so it's incredibly hard for me to say. But if I had to pick, I would say, Are You Afraid of the Dark? And that is because, one, I just think it's a very well-made show, and I think it's really timeless.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of shows on Nickelodeon that are timeless, but I think that one in particular is timeless because it's a lot of stories. They took their inspiration from a lot of classic mythology, classic stories that you see, the monkey's paw you see in there, the Pied Piper, the monkey's paw. You see a lot of those in Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah.
I think it's well done, and I think that the fact that a lot of times those stories did not have a happy ending, I think that's amazing, that it's a kids' network, and a lot of times, at the end of the show, the kid ends up trapped in another dimension or with a vampire eating them or something. I think that really kind of shows how progressive Nickelodeon was and how much they didn't underestimate kids, that they knew kids could handle stuff that's a little heavier like that. And then also the fact that, you think about it, all of these shows, once you cast your initial core cast, which I think Nickelodeon did a fantastic job. Like Clarissa Explains It All, cast amazing. Salute Your Shorts, Hey Dude, all those shows, they did such a great job of casting talented kids, but also kids that felt real. But Are You Afraid of the Dark took it another step because every single episode had to have a totally new cast. You start off at the beginning with the Midnight Society, but then the bulk of the episode is the story that they're telling. So they had to be really good at finding new kids all the time because every episode they had to cast a new kid. And the proof's in the pudding because you look at all those shows, a lot of those kids went on to be huge stars. Nev Campbell was in an episode. Ryan Gosling was in an episode. It's crazy how many people went on to be huge stars. So clearly they knew what they were doing.
Yeah. I do think, overall, yeah, they definitely had on their live action, Nickelodeon overall had a good way of casting people that felt real, like real kids, like on Salute Your Shorts, which was probably my favorite.
Oh my God, yes.
I love that show. And, Denny Cooksey as Buttnick was probably my favorite character on TV at the time. So, yeah, he was.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I was super starstruck to get to meet him. It was crazy. I was starstruck. He accepted my friend request on Facebook a long time ago, and I was like, "Oh wow!" But he had like the first season. He had like the most ultimate mullet of a person ever. Yeah,
but
yeah. I always say, like, when I was a kid, I was a cross between Sponge and Budnick. Like, I had the mullet like Budnick, and I really loved heavy metal music like Budnick, but I was really small and nerdy like Sponge. So I think I probably wanted to be Budnick, but I was more Sponge.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you think about it, also that dude, if you're about our age, like, he was on Different Strokes when you were a little kid, and then he was in Terminator 2.
I know.
He even was in Mac and Me for a few seconds. So it's like, he was everywhere. He was everywhere, back then.
That's awesome. I mean, that's got to be interesting. That brings me to the next question. How were you able to get people like him and like Kenan Thompson and Melissa Joan Hart and Geraldine Laybourne especially to be part of the project?
It was all different ways. We just had to cast our net super wide. It's funny because, like I said, Adam and I had never made a documentary before, and we'd never made a film before, a feature-length film. This was our first, so we were nobodies. I mean, we still are, but we were definite nobodies then. But we also had no inside track. A lot of times when people make a documentary, we found out it's because they have some sort of access to something.
Yeah.
We did not. We had no access to any of this stuff. So we did a crowdfund. That's how we were able to start the project, was doing a crowdfund. And the crowdfund was successful. And then there was this moment of panic after we got the money. We're like, oh my God, these people have entrusted us with all this money. What if we start trying to book interviews and everyone says no, and we just have to give everyone their money back and say sorry? But, so it was really difficult in the beginning, really difficult. But luckily, everybody was excited to talk about Nickelodeon, which I think is funny because a lot of times child actors that go on to do other things, they don't like talking about what they did in the beginning. They don't like talking about what they did as a child. But I think it speaks to Geraldine Laybourne and her team at Nickelodeon at what a great environment that they created, that all of these people, even people like Kenan Thompson, who's been on Saturday Night Live way longer than he was ever on All That.
Yeah.
Even he was excited to talk about Nickelodeon because it's where they cut their teeth. And they're just as nostalgic as we are, just in a different way, because that's the beginning of their career.
Yeah.
So, we just started asking people any way that we could. If we could slide into their DMs on social media, we do that. Or if we could get a hold of their agent or their manager, we just made a list. We just made a spreadsheet of every person we wanted to interview, and then every single way that we could get a hold of them, and we just started doing it. And then once we got the first 5 or 6, the next 5 or 6 became a lot easier, because some people would be like, "Oh, you should interview this person. I'll text them real quick and let them know that you guys are cool." So then people would vouch for us, and we could message people and go, "Hey, we talked to so-and-so." Like once we got Mark Summers, we could go to other people and be like, "Oh, we just interviewed Mark," and people would be like, "Oh, well, if Mark did it, then I'll do it too." So it got progressively easier and easier and easier. And then we took a trip to Los Angeles. We took a trip to New York, and then we cut a little mini teaser trailer together. That our trailer that we even have now is still very similar to that first teaser we ever cut. We cut a little trailer together for that, and we debuted it at New York City Comic Con in 2018. And that helped us even more, because then people were like, "Whoa, what is it?" They could see it. You can say all day, "I'm doing a Nick doc," and people are like, what does that mean? What is a Nickelodeon documentary? But then once they saw, Kenan Thompson, Larissa Oleynik, Budnick, Danny Cooksey, they were like, "Oh, wow, this is really cool." And Adam F. Goldberg, the creator of the fantastic show The Goldbergs, he saw that trailer and was like, "I'd love to come on as a producer and help you guys just get across the finish line." And so he helped us book he basically said, "Who do you want that you didn't get? I'll get them for you." And he legitimately did. He came back like within a week and is like, "Hey, I reached out to all those people that you said you couldn't get, that you wanted to get. I got them for you. Now you can interview them." So, and Geraldine Laybourne was one of those people. It's crazy to think how this documentary could have been good without her, but for the longest time we thought we were not going to get her.
Oh,
thought
wow.
she was not going to do it, just because she doesn't do interviews a lot,
Yeah.
And especially about Nickelodeon. And when we finally got to talk to her, she said it was nothing. I know you guys messaged me a bunch of times. It's nothing against y'all. It's like, I don't want it to seem as though I'm talking bad about new Nickelodeon, because I think that's what people try to get her to say when they interview her. Like, "Oh, isn't it crap now? Isn't it horrible now? Wasn't it better when you were there?" And she has zero desire to do that. So once she saw that our documentary wasn't about that, and that we were cool and we were going to make this documentary and it wasn't going to be like a TMZ type thing, she was really awesome and has been nothing short of amazing to work with. She's been so helpful and so supportive.
That's awesome. I mean, it's very cool to know that, like, basically Nickelodeon was spearheaded and made popular by a woman. I mean, it's just she's basically, like, in a way, the Walt Disney of Nickelodeon. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, and it's just it's very cool that she was able to, basically change everybody's childhoods of that era of our generation. It's I mean, it's kind of inspiration. I mean, I'm sure it's really inspirational seeing this documentary to, like, young women and people that are trying to get into any kind of business, whether it be entertainment or not. It's very cool. She just seems like a very cool, down to earth, inspirational, smart woman. And I like how that basically you've taken the documentary and made it about her, because that's probably the, a lot of, I mean, because you could have done just like a surface thing about Nickelodeon and the stuff people know, but not everybody knows the fact that the people behind the scenes that actually spearheaded everything. That
was kind of what we really wanted to do, was because you're right, she is like a Walt Disney, but her name isn't on it, so a lot of people don't necessarily know who she is. Of course, if you're in the industry, you do, or if you've done research, but your average person is like, "Oh, I love Nickelodeon." It's like, but you don't know who gave you that Nickelodeon, who gave you such a fantastic childhood. And I think with this really fantastic movement that we're seeing for diversity in entertainment now, I think it's great to go, "Hey, look what can happen when you do. look what can happen when you do listen to voices that are outside of the quote unquote norm.
Yeah.
This already happened. This isn't a what if. What if we start letting, more people make stuff? Maybe it'll be cool. It's like, no, it will be. This is the proof that it will be. Look, this woman who, and it wasn't just her. There was also Vanessa Coffey, who was in charge of all of the Nicktoons, and Anne Sweeney, who was basically her second in command, and Angela Santamero, who was really, really instrumental in getting Nick Jr. off the ground. Look what can happen. It's amazing. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I was honored to get I'm very honored and humbled to get to be a part of this.
Just curious, what do you wish you knew that you know now that you didn't know before you started the documentary? Like, is there anything that, you wish you would have known?
Yeah. There's a lot. I mean, a lot of technical stuff, like I know I can do everything that I did then. I can do a lot better now. So there's a lot of boring technical things. The only thing I like to say is, like, filming and editing this film was so much fun. Like, what's the old saying? People say, like, do something that you love and you'll never work a day in your life. I think that's something like that. That's how this felt. Like, we had to really bust our butts to make it happen. And we knew we were going to have to, because we knew for this to feel real and authentic, we were going to have to get a lot of people, a lot more people. An average documentary maybe has 5, 10, 12 people. We knew we were going to have to get at least 1 or 2 people from each show.
Yeah.
And we had to get a lot of people, and we did not have a big budget at all. Like, this was done on a absolute shoestring budget, DIY punk rock way of filmmaking. And it was just so much fun to film all these interviews. It was so much fun. And then to get to edit them was so much fun. But then all the business side, I would stand my ground a lot more than I think that we did. There's going to be people that are going to try to take advantage of you once you have that. There were people that believed in us from the very beginning. And that's amazing. Bill Parks, Lee Leshin, they're 2 producers that came in from the very beginning and were like, hey, I think you guys have a good idea. I'm going to help you. But then once you start getting some traction, people want to come in and kind of take it from you. And, just be confident in yourself. And also the business end takes a long, because that's what I didn't know anything about. I knew how to film. I knew how to edit. This was just on a much bigger scale than I had ever done before, much larger, but I still I knew what I was doing. But the business end, I had no idea. So that's what I wish I would tell filmmakers. Like, find somebody that you trust that knows how to do that stuff. We did that, and that's the only reason why we were successful, is we did have some people on our team that were good at that and were able to help us. Because, for example, the film debuted at 2018 at DOC NYC is when this debuted. And it just now came out. It just takes a long time, especially if you have to deal with bullcrap from people. It makes it come even longer. So,
did you ever visit Nick Studios as a kid or anything?
I didn't get to. I always wanted to, but our cinematographer Sean did. So I got to watch a lot of his home videos and hear him talk about it. It seems amazing.
Yeah, I went there once when I was a teen, and I don't know if I was really into Nickelodeon at the time, but it was still really cool to see the behind the scenes of stuff. Because I think that might have been like right when I was kind of waning off of, like caring about Nickelodeon. But it was really cool though. I was glad I went into that because I was more excited about going to like the Back to the Future ride and stuff like that at Universal. But I ended up going to that, and I was like, wow, this is cool, because like my little cousin, he wanted to go to it, and we were there, and it was fun, watching people get slimed and all that other stuff. And we watched like a little game show. I don't know if it was one that was actually aired on TV or one that they set up to do there, but yeah, it was pretty cool to see that all done. And I love anything behind the scenes when it comes to filmmaking, because I'm a filmmaker myself, so it's kind of cool to see that stuff. But yeah, that was fun. What was like, I mean, I know I already asked you about like what you would want to know ahead of time, but was there anything while making this movie that really, really surprised you? Like anything you found out or anything like that was like the most surprising?
Well, like there's a whole first chapter where we talk about Nickelodeon when it only existed in Columbus, Ohio on this thing called Cube.
Yeah.
And I was just fascinated by Cube. Like it was, because I knew nothing about it. So I was having fun with that because there was no nostalgia attached to that at all. I didn't remember this. But to learn about this it was a weird invention that I've always loved stuff like that, like failed technologies like Laserdisc or Beta or AOL. Like I love learning about technologies that didn't make it and why. And so that was like right up my alley to get to learn about this weird invention where you could essentially, this is in the late 70s, you could talk back to your TV through buttons. That's just fascinating. But especially when you think about it, like that's what we do now. You know, like American Idol or The Voice, you're like calling in on your phone and voting. That's like what they were doing way back then. The technology just wasn't there to make it happen, you know? It's kind of like the Power Glove. You know, the Power Glove was a cool idea for Nintendo, but it was when you actually, I don't know if you ever had a Power Glove, but when you actually got it, it sucked. It didn't do what it was supposed to do. But years later, the Wii did what the Power Glove was supposed to do all those years before, but it actually did it well, you know? So I was surprised by that. I was surprised.
I was just going to say, I remember the Power Glove looking so cool in The Wizard with Fred Savage, but it was just like, I never, I had a friend who had one, but gosh.
Yeah. The commercials had the guy, he's like boxing and it's like, whoa, literally whatever you're doing with your hand is what's happening on the screen. No, there were like 4 things that you pointed at. It made the games like way harder.
Yeah.
But I was fascinated by that. And, you know, the whole thing about Vanessa Coffey helping to basically create Nicktoons. I was fascinated by that. That I did not know that much about. And so to get to meet her and find out, I mean, really, she should have been credited as a creator on some of those, not just an executive producer. You know, and just as an example, you know, Ren and Stimpy was originally about like 20 characters, and I think it was called Our Gang. And it was just about all these characters. And she was the one that was like, no. The only 2 that are good are these cat and dog. If you focus on them, it'll be good. I mean, to me, that's like, she should have been a creator, you know? So, and just to think that hindsight's always 20/20, you know, there's all the, you know, it's Cartoon Network. But at the time, there really were no cartoons, creator-driven cartoons like Rick and Morty and Steven Universe and all those shows we see all over the place now. Those were not a thing. The only things that got cartoons, the only reason for a cartoon was because you had a toy to sell. We've got this toy. It's a robot. It's a robot that turns into a diesel. We need to make a cartoon. Okay, we've got this guy that has a sword. He-Man. We need to make a cartoon. It was all cartoons was just part of a media package to sell toys. And that's not the case now, you know, and they were one of the first people to do that. I was fascinated by that.
And I mean, I think even earlier it was kind of cool before they started creating their own cartoons where they brought in things like Danger Mouse and other things like that early on, where they were able to, you know, bring in stuff from foreign countries and, you know, because they weren't able to get their own.
Yeah. I loved that. I loved Danger Mouse. I loved Banana Man, Heathcliff. Do you remember Heathcliff? I watched that a lot. All those old shows I thought were really cool. And then, you know, it was Vanessa Coffey that was the one that came to them and was like, hey, you guys should just make your own.
Yeah.
You know,
and that's awesome.
They even played Looney Tunes. They even played Looney Tunes back in the day, late 80s Nickelodeon. And she was the one that said, just make them. Just make your own.
Yeah.
I mean, everything about what they did was so creative. Nick at Night, you know, I got to learn the history behind that. That unfortunately didn't make it in the film, but that was really fascinating to learn about how Nick at Night came about. And that's still going today.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Nick at Night as a kid. I mean, having, like, my first, like, I think, crush on a woman was Shelley Fabre on the Donna Reed show for some stupid reason, you know? I was just like, what the heck? And I'm like, like, she was, you know, at the time she was, like, in her 50s or 40s or something, and I'm, like, a little kid, and I'm like, oh, she's cute. But, I think
I had the same thought.
Yeah. The thing with the cartoons, I mean, it's definitely really cool. I mean, I love the fact that they were able to even tap into, like, the the preteen sort of thing with like Doug. I loved Doug. It was such a great show. I mean, it was so cool. And I mean, it was cool to see Jim Jenkins talk about about that in your documentary, which is, I think people will enjoy seeing, which is really cool. Because that show, I mean, it meant a lot to me. I mean, I didn't really care for it when it went to Disney, but it was great on Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
I think it was mainly just because I didn't like the new voice of Doug, but that was just it. But yeah,
Doug was great, and Jim Jenkins is just one of those fantastic human beings. He's just one of those people that's like, you are made out of love, like. You are a genuine, like, shining, beautiful person.
He seemed really nice in the documentary. It seems cool. Was there anybody that you wanted to get for the documentary that you absolutely weren't able to? Or are you not allowed to talk about it?
Yeah, I mean... No, I can talk about it. I mean, because at the end of the day, realistically, we could have filmed this thing forever. We could have gotten, at some point, we had to cut it off. We're like, okay, if we get any more people, we're not going to be able to do any shows justice. But I mean, obviously, a big one that people always bring up is Alanis Morissette, who she was only on a couple of episodes of You Can't Do That on Television.
Yeah,
but that would have been pretty. It would have been. Ultimately, all the people that we didn't get were for selfish reasons, because I just would have loved to have met them, like I would have loved to have met Alanis Morissette. Also, Iggy Pop, he played the neighbor's dad on Pete and Pete. I would have loved to have gotten to meet Iggy Pop again, purely for selfish reasons.
Because I mean, they're small parts of those shows, so it really wouldn't have probably helped the story.
It doesn't really make sense. There are a couple of shows that I wish that we could have gone into more, because ultimately, we had to be able to get at least one or two people that were on the show to make it work. If we couldn't get anybody from the show, or we couldn't get the footage from a show, we couldn't do it. But My Brother and Me is a show that I wish we could have gone into more, but we couldn't get anybody from it. And then Roundhouse, like a lot of the weird shows, I would love to have been able to go into a little bit more. And then I would love to have gotten more people from Are You Afraid of the Dark? We have Ross Hull, Daniel DeSanto, Jason Alisharan, who were all in front of the camera, and then we got DJ McHale, the creator. So we got a nice cast. But I would have loved to have gotten some of the female cast members, but the ones that we reached out to declined. And then some of the other ones we just weren't able to find, because they're all in Canada. So it just didn't work out. But I would have loved to have gotten some of the females from Are You Afraid of the Dark, for sure.
Was that show shot in Canada?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The majority of it was. It was a Canadian production, yeah.
I figured with Ryan Gosling being a guest on there and stuff like that, because he was Canadian. So yeah. What do you have planned next? Anything? Any other documentaries or features or anything coming up next?
Yeah, I got a lot of cool stuff coming up. So I'm actually just before COVID really got crazy, wrapped filming a cool documentary about the band GWAR. And for a lot of people that don't know GWAR, they're Empire. I always bring up Empire Records. They were the band that eats Mark.
Yeah.
Whenever he eats the pot brownie. But it's been a truly beautiful, fascinating journey to get to meet the people in GWAR and get to tell their story. Our goal is, even if you're not into heavy metal at all and you've never heard of GWAR, you're gonna like it. We want to tell a story that, because those people have been through so much, and they really are the hardest working. I don't even want to call them a band, because that's one thing. Spoiler alert, that you find out they're not really a band. They're more of a artist collective. But they're some of the hardest working people in show business. So hoping to have that done, soon. And then we'll start shopping that out there.
It's cool. Yeah. I know that, I can't remember who it was, but there was somebody from my area, cause I'm in Toledo, Ohio, that was a member of GWAR at one point. So that's kind of cool to hear. Cause I remember that was the first time I actually heard of GWAR. I actually saw them once in concert, like years ago, like in the 90s or something. So yeah, that was crazy. That's kind of cool. Where can people find the Orange Years? Just curious. So if people want to, I I myself bought it on Amazon, so I was just curious where else you can get it.
Yeah, so we're working with a really great distribution company called Gravitas.
Mm-hmm.
They are also the people that distributed the Ren and Stimpy doc, Happy Happy Joy Joy, which is fantastic. If you haven't seen that, that's a really fantastic documentary. We reached out to those people and just said, hey, we're doing something kind of similar, but also not that similar. So if we can help, we're happy to help. And, we talk about Ren and Stimpy in our doc, but for a much, much, much deeper dive on Ren and Stimpy, I always say watch that because it's a whole, 90-something minute doc just about Ren and Stimpy, and they're able to tackle things that we just couldn't tackle in ours. But anyway, Gravitas has both of them. Gravitas is a great company. They've got it everywhere. So, you can, if you want a DVD or a Blu-ray, you can get that on Amazon. But if you want to stream it, pretty much anywhere that you can rent or buy movies digitally, it's there. So iTunes, Amazon, Fandango, Vudu, Redbox Digital, YouTube, Google Play, anywhere that like lets you rent or and it just came down in price too. So it's like I think $7.99 you can own it digitally forever. So pretty much anywhere you want it, you can get it.
Yeah, I bought it this week. I had already rented it once, and then I was like, I'll just buy it because I wanted to watch it again. So I was like, I'll just keep it.
Oh,
so yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks for doing that. That's awesome.
What advice would you give to anybody that's interested in getting into filmmaking? Like,
what advice would I give people? I would say, one thing that I can only say what's helped me. I don't know if it would help other people, but one thing I would say is, learn how to do everything at least good enough, but without forgetting what you want to do. So if you want to be a director, learn how to do cinematography, learn how to edit, learn how to produce, learn how to do all these other things, but don't stress out if you're not amazing. Just be good enough at all of those things. If you want to be a writer, learn how to direct, learn how to do cinematography, learn how to act, learn how to do everything else, at least at an acceptable level. And then whatever it is you want to do, try to excel at that. Because I've kind of found being able to do a little bit of everything has helped me out a lot because in a pinch, I shot a handful of these interviews myself. And I edited a lot of this myself, and I booked a lot of the interviews. So a lot of the things that were a producer's job or a cinematographer's job or an editor's job, I did. And a lot of first-time directors or even long-time directors do that. But I think that helped me a lot, especially when you're working on a no-string budget to not have to pay other people. I mean, granted, we did have a cinematographer. We did have an editor. We had 2 other people that I edited this with. But, we were able to by me doing that for free, was able to bring the cost down significantly. And also it helped me talk to them because, instead of just going, make it look good, I'm able to talk to the cinematographer and say, what if we did it this way? What, left looking right? What if, we did Kenan left looking right. So let's do Kel right looking left. What if we were able to come up with a style for how we wanted to shoot the interviews together because I knew how to do it. And like I said, it brought the cost down a lot, but I didn't beat myself up if I'm not as good a cinematographer as a person whose passion is cinematography. Why would I be? That's not my calling. And that kind of leads me to the second thing is learn what you're good at and learn what you're bad at, because the things that you're bad at, either get good at them, or if you're not able to, find people that are good at those things to be on your team. Like I was able to surround myself with some people that are really good in areas that I'm bad. Like I mentioned, the business side of it. I've learned a lot about it and I can do it a lot better than I could before, but that's not my passion is filming things and editing them to make them look cool. Not dealing with lawyers and agents and managers. So find people that are good at that so that they can help you. So those would be my 2 biggest things is just, learn how to do everything at least okay and be comfortable with your shortcomings and find people who are strong where you're weak.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to surround yourself with people that are sometimes smarter than you about things because that way
yes,
you can learn from them and they can, do the things that you can't do. Yeah, I mean, I learned that a lot when I've made movies myself. So it's like, unfortunately, I just recently lost one of my best friends passed away because he was my producer and cinematographer. So it was kind of cool, but I move on. Luckily, I know other people, so I can still do the stuff. But it's sad. But but it was always cool to have him or other people around me when I was making a movie, so they could pick up the slack where I just didn't know what I was doing, or was learning. What is something I like to ask people once in a while is like, what are you watching right now? Like, is there anything that you've been binging or seeing or anything that you really have been enjoying?
Yeah, I mean, I finished up The Boys. I really liked The Boys a lot. I always liked the Watchmen comic book back in the day, and then I liked the Watchmen show that came out. But the Watchmen movie, I thought was the movie that came out a while back. I thought was a little bit of a miss. So I thought that this was almost like what I imagined the Watchmen being like. It tackles something similar, and the way they tackled social issues that are happening in real life, I thought was just brilliant. And I watched Vikings. I just finished watching the show Vikings. Their season came out. I'm watching a lot of documentaries, of course. There's I just watched The Console Wars. That's about Sega versus Nintendo on CBS. I really enjoyed that. There's a fantastic... there's a little bit of a conflict of interest here because I do watch a lot of documentaries, but I also watch my friends and peers documentaries. Jasper Mall is a brilliant documentary. And one of the gentlemen that I edited the Orange Years with, his name is Bradford Thomason. He directed Jasper Mall, and he and his partner Brett are just some of the most fantastic documentary filmmakers I think out there. They did the Rockafire explosion documentary. They did the Gorgeous Ladies of Rest. That was oh my God. I reached out to him after I saw that, and I was like, hey man, I'm kind of doing this Nickelodeon documentary. Would you want to edit it with me? And he's like, yeah, that sounds good. So to get to work with somebody that was kind of a hero of mine was really a treat, But yeah, he has a documentary called Jasper Mall. It's all cinema verite. No sit-down interviews at all, just all about a dying mall. And that's kind of fascinating. Like, that culture is kind of going away. That business model is going away. And it's just such a great, beautiful documentary. I watched that one. And then, let's see, gosh, I watched so many. The Vow, I watched.
Yeah, that was good too.
Yeah. Heavy, but good. Yeah. Like so much. So I guess that's what I'm watching. I try to watch a new documentary every week if I can, and then just whatever shows are pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm a big documentary fan. Obviously, that's why I reached out to you. I especially anything about entertainment, but also, I mean, yeah, I just actually added Jasper Mall to my queue on Amazon just the other day. I didn't realize that there was any connection, so yeah, I just added it. So yeah, that's cool. Yeah,
so good. It's so good.
Yeah, I'll have to definitely probably watch that this weekend. That's really cool. Before I let you go, anything else you wanted to add before I let you go here?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I'm really has been such an honor, to tell this story has been so amazing. The fact that we got to do that, I have to pinch myself all the time that we got to make this Nickelodeon documentary. But the importance, kind of to go back to the advice that I was saying of surrounding yourself with a great team. It helped me so much. We had so many talented people. Sean Coffin was our cinematographer on this. He has a documentary out called Netflix versus the World. Such a good documentary. It's a really great companion piece to. I guess what I'm saying is I like to give a shout out to all the people that helped me out. That's how I always like to close because, me and Adam are credited as the directors, but so many brilliant, talented people made this thing possible that maybe don't get the credit. And it really does. Takes a village to make a film. But Sean, he did Netflix. He did Netflix versus the World. If you've recently watched The Last Blockbuster, that's a great documentary. Netflix versus the World is a great companion for that, because he does go into Blockbuster in his Netflix doc of what went wrong there. Why were they not able to compete with Netflix? So if you've watched Blockbuster, if you want more of that good Blockbuster video nostalgia, watch Netflix versus the World.
I would. I worked at Blockbuster for 9 years, so I definitely would.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
It's so nostalgic. So yeah, if you watch the last Blockbuster and you're just wanting a little bit more, watch Netflix versus the World, because Netflix is only half of it. The other half of his documentary is basically about Blockbuster and what happened. And then, there's Bradford Thomason, who did Jasper Mall, who also did a really cool documentary about Van Halen and called The Lost Weekend. It's short. You can find it online for free. It's really cool. And he's so talented. Window Pictures. And another person at Window Pictures is Bradford's wife, Allie Clark. She did our opening titles, and I think our opening titles are so cool. I think that when I saw those, I was just blown away. I think it totally sets the tone, and she did that. She's so talented, and she does a lot of the motion graphics for Bradford's movies. And then Justin Harder of Cloud Studios, he did all of our drawings, and he's most famous for doing the end credits for Deadpool. He did a lot of our artwork. And then my dear friend Jeff Johnson, if you get to watch the documentary, we have a lot of cool animation in it. When people are telling stories that happened a long time ago, we knew we wanted to animate them. And it just so happened one of my best friends is a talented animator, and that's just his style. He wasn't trying to do anything. That's just how he draws. And it came out so good. So Jeff Johnson, check out his animation in it. Elisa Reyes, who was on Nickelodeon back in the day. She was a producer on our doc.
Yeah.
She's so talented. She has a movie out called Break Even now. She's an actor/producer, so please check that out. She's so talented. I mean, everybody that worked on this. Darren Beck did our soundtrack. And I mean, talk about a guy with his work cut out for him. He had to think about all this. When you watch our doc, we have so many songs in there, because when we talk about, hey, dude, we had to play some country music and some that kind of music. And then we talk about, you can't do that on television. We have this weird polka music playing. We have some 80s music. We have some like New Jack Swing in there. We have all these. Every time we talk about a new show or a new year, we have new music. And Darren Beck, who's in a band called Pinkish Black, he did all that music, and he's so talented. So, I mean, and Lee Leshin, Bill Parks, they were producers. Everybody just did such a good job. I'm sure I'm leaving people out, and I apologize, but it was just so awesome to get to work with all these talented people.
Very cool. Thank you again for your time, and I do recommend everybody check out The Orange Years. It was probably one of the best documentaries I've seen in a long time. So It was really cool, really entertaining, especially if you grew up during the 80s and 90s and part of that generation. You'll definitely enjoy it, and again, hopefully I can't wait for the GWAR documentary, and definitely be keeping an eye out on what you and everybody are doing. So
cool.
Thanks again for your time.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem. Okay, that was my talk with Scott Barber, the co-director of The Orange Years, the Nickelodeon Story. Hope you enjoyed that. Matt had a good idea for a sequel documentary for this. When we were talking, what was that, Matt?
Oh, just do another The Orange Years Part 2, and it's just having all the same people interviewed talking about Trump the whole time. Like no context whatsoever. Like, why have them interviewed? It's because the same guys.
Just having Drake Bell and Kenan Thompson and Mark Summers and people talking about Donald Trump.
And then just have a picture of Trump being oozed with orange ooze, even though it usually was green.
Yeah,
color.
the green slime.
Well, sometimes it was multi-color. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a specific orange color that's actually owned by Nickelodeon. But
oh really?
Yeah.
Wow,
so
interesting.
Yeah, just like there's a pink color that's owned by Barbie. So just little facts that I've randomly picked. Yeah.
It is very specific. What's that?
Yeah, go ahead. I was gonna say they're just little facts that I've looked up.
Yeah, I mean there is a specific now that I think about it, the Nickelodeon logo does have a very specific shade of orange. So
we talked about it on there a little bit, but I can't wait to see the next documentaries and stuff that that Scott Barber and Adam Sweeney come up with. I know Scott was talking about they're doing one about GWAR, the rock band that dressed up and stuff, the performance artists basically, GWAR. Which that'll be fun to watch.
Yeah.
Can't wait till that comes out. Other things, make sure you look in the show notes and stuff for all the links to everything that you can find out about Scott and what else he's got coming on in the future. So what's on your mind here, Matt? Have you been watching anything cool or anything lately?
Just WandaVision mainly.
Yeah.
Before
on the topic though, actually, this might be something interesting to ask you, Matt. What was your favorite? What was your favorite Nickelodeon show?
My favorite was probably, I did like Salute Your Shorts a lot, but I would say Pete and Pete was probably my favorite show.
And he interviews both. Yeah, he interviews both the Petes in this movie too. So
sweet. Yeah, I would say that was probably. Clarissa explains a lot. Ironically, even though I was a kid, I actually did not like the cartoons as much as the not real shows, the human or whatever, the live action shows. But I did like Clarissa Explains It All. I did like Ren and Stimpy, but I was at an age where I didn't really understand what it was actually about. I just liked it because it was weird. But
I liked Doug. That was mine.
Doug was good.
I thought Doug was the best of the three original Nicktoons. There was Rugrats, Ren and Stimpy, and Doug. I just said Doug. I just totally blanked on the name of the show I just said I liked. But anyways, it was a great show. I loved Doug. And it's cool. And Ren and Stimpy I really can't watch anymore. I mean, it's just too gross for me. And and especially with all of the stuff, if you want to look it up sometime, that John Kay, the creator of it, Chris Falusi is his last, Chris Falusi. He's not a good guy. That's all I'm gonna say. If you want to look that stuff up, go ahead.
There's plenty of articles,
plenty of videos on YouTube and everything too. But anyways, I don't know. I really recommend watching this movie. Recommend lately. I don't know when this is going to air, but Peacock has a speaking of stuff from that I grew up with. There's a reboot of Punky Brewster, which I actually liked. It's cheesy as hell, but I liked it. So watched all 10 episodes the other day. So recommend watching that. Anything else before we wrap things up here, Matt?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. So make sure you check out our Patreon. Check out our Facebook group, All2ReelToo podcast group. It's a long name, but just look it up. And if you have anything you want to let us know or anything you want us to cover, send me a message to mike@cullenpark.com. And until next time, bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to All2ReelToo podcast, a Cullen Park production. Produced and edited by Michael E. Cullen II. Music by Matthew Hawes. Subscribe and share the show. Visit us at cullenpark.com.